والحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين المصطفى أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا غريب الغرباء. صلى الله عليك يا أنيس النفوس وشمس الشموس الغريب المدفون بأرض طوس. رزقنا الله في الدنيا زيارتك وشفاعتك في الدنيا وفي القبر وفي الآخرة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن يتق الله يجعل له مخرجا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. This ayah number 2, or the last sentence of ayah number 2 from Surah Al-Talaq, it is said that if someone is in financial difficulty, if you recite this last sentence of the surah, it's ayah number 2, and ayah number 3 of Surah Al-Talaq, the ayah after it. I only recited this portion because this is really what I would like to discuss about tonight. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. And the continuation is وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَالِغُ أَمْرِهِ قَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدَرًا. That's ayah number 3. If you read this ayah or this portion of the last ayah as well as ayah number 3, 3 times after every wajib salat, every obligatory salat, then inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ease this difficulty, this financial difficulty from the individual. It will not make a person super rich, but at least he will be independent. He'll have sufficient. We are commemorating this day the martyrdom of Al-Imam Al-Rida salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, Gharib al-Ghuraba, who's given this title as the stranger of all strangers because of course the distance in which he was buried away from home, being the furthest Imam from Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim ajma'een, away from his home city of Medina. Although as I mentioned today in Salat al-Jumu'ah, if you go to his shrine today, you'll find that he is not really Gharib al-Ghuraba. Today, the Imams who are in Medina are Gharib al-Ghuraba. The Imams who are in their home city, in their hometown, next to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, next to their grandfather, they are the ones who really are strangers. Really, if you stand on their graves, those of mu'mineen of you who have been to Medina, you really find your heart, breaking. Seeing that right next to them is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and this is the situation of them, their graves and their shrines demolished. Not only that, a person cannot even get close to the grave of these ma'soomeen. Not only that, a person cannot even do the ziyarah of these ma'soomeen alayhimus salam. This is really one of the biggest oppression that Ahlul Bayt are facing after their death. Now you think when they're alive, okay, maybe some of those kings and those so-called caliphs thought that they posed some dangers against them when they're alive. But you think after their death, people would ease off a little bit, but unfortunately the aggression is continuing more and more. Nonetheless, Imam al-Rida salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, his life is unique, especially among the Imams who lived in the Abbasi dynasty, in the sense that he took the second most important position in the whole state, and that is probably one of the most significant highlights of his life, of his imamah. Wilayatul Ahd, to accepting that, being the successor of the Ma'mun. Of course, he was forced into accepting it. He had no choice. Ma'mun al-Abbasi told him, you either become my successor or I'm going to kill you. That was the bottom line. After many trials with the Imam, finally he laid it out flat. This is, you either become my successor or I'm going to kill you. So the Imam alayhi salam was forced into this position and accepting it. Nonetheless, he accepted the position, and according to Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi radwanallah ta'ala alayh, in Mafatih, he says this happened on the 6th day of Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan. That's when this happened, and that's why he says this day the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam should rejoice, should celebrate, because it was the only time, or it was one of the first times after many, many years in oppression, that the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam were able to come out in public and praise the Imam, shake his hand, and pay their bay'ah, their allegiance to the Imam, salamullah. They give their allegiance to the Imam, alayhi salam. So he says at least it's a day of happiness, a day of joy. This ayah that we recited, that portion of the second ayah of Surah Al-Talaq, Allah says, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Anyone who truly has the taqwa of Allah, the piety of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the piety in performing the obligatory actions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the individual to do, the piety to refrain from the ma'siyah, such an individual, Allah says, يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take him out of every difficulty he experiences. Now, these difficulties could be in dunya, could be in akhirah, or these difficulties may be that a person, yes, might face some tragedies in dunya. Like, for example, the companions of Imam al-Hussein alayhimus salam. They faced a big tragedy. They were killed. Yet look at them today. In dunya, look at their glorification in dunya. That's, never mind their state in the akhirah, where everyone, every year, millions of zuwar go to their ziyarah. Their grave is right next to Imam Hussein salamullah alayhi in the same shrine. Millions of people go for their ziyarah. Millions of people read their ziyarah every Thursday night. I mean, this is truly the tawfiq, the success, the honor. Anyone who has taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who fears Allah, remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will save him in dunya and in akhirah. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. And Imam al-Rida salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, being of course from this household of Isma, gives us a beautiful example of such, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this ma'soom, this Imam who sacrificed a lot. He gave him this honor in dunya and in the akhirah. Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi, his name was Abdullah al-Ma'mun. He was born in the year 170 after Hijrah. This means he was 22 years younger than Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. Imam al-Rida was 22 years older than Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi. The day he was born was the same day that his father Harun became the Khalifa. Therefore, it was a day of joy for Harun. He brought him good luck, good fortune. And that's why he called him Ma'mun. He gave him a good name because he brought him some good luck. Now, apparently, he is few months older than his other brother, Al-Amin, Muhammad Al-Amin. But there was a huge contrast between the two. Huge contrast. Muhammad Al-Amin was the son of Zubaydah, the wife of Harun. Zubaydah comes from Bani al-Abbas. She was an Abbasi. And Harun is, of course, from Bani al-Abbas as well. This makes Muhammad al-Amin very unique. In fact, they say he is the only Abbasi Khalifa, the Caliph of Bani Abbas, whose father and mother both come from the Abbasi lineage. Okay. So he had a lot of power in that sense, lineage-wise. Because of this, he lived a very comfortable life, the life of kings. His mother is a queen, basically, and his father is a king. We don't call him a Khalifa, because it was not Khilafah, really. It was king, leadership, monarchy. So he lived this comfortable life, and hence he was a spoiled child, spoiled by his parents, spoiled especially by his mother, Zubaydah. And also when he was born, he was given to Harun's right-hand man at the time, a man by the name of Al-Fadl ibn Yahya al-Barmaki. Those Baramika from this Barmaki family, these people were very powerful during the Abbasi Caliph's dynasty, were very powerful. But then, subhanallah, they became a saying, they became an example among the Arabs. Because Harun al-Rashid, when he realized their power is getting too much, out of control, in one night, literally one night, he designed a plot. In one night, a plot that was top secret. You know how sometimes you watch in movies, you know, they have CIA files, they stamp them secret, top secret, you know. This was a top secret mission. Those people were so powerful in the kingdom, in the state. He had to get rid of all of them in one night. All of the men had to be captured and killed in one night. How do you do so? When they were in charge of the army, they were in charge of leadership. So he designed a really malicious plot, which tells you what kind of people those people were. Harun and those caliphs. He designed a plot. In one night, he managed to capture all of the men. All of the men. Imprison them and kill them. All of them. And all of the women were thrown out of their homes into the streets. It became known as, in Arabic, they call it Nakbatul Baramika. The tragedy of the Baramika. In one night, from being those powerful leaders, literally overnight, in the prison and out on the street. Now when we read this in the history, we say, how is this possible, you know? But subhanallah, we witness this in this day and age. In this day and age. Look in the past few years, how many kings and leaders you've seen were in palaces and literally overnight they were out in holes or in pipes or in prison or God knows where. No, overnight, literally. You see it. When we see this happening, we realize how those people plotted as well. Nonetheless, Al-Fadl ibn Yahya al-Barmaki was a very powerful man. So Al-Amin was given to him, so he would raise him, he would take care of him, he would bring him up. Zubaydah, his mother, made sure that those Baramika, they were powerful, pay their allegiance to her son so that her son becomes the Khalifa. Her son becomes the Khalifa. In fact, she sent her brother to Al-Fadl ibn Yahya al-Barmaki. She told him, her brother said to him, you make all your men, the Baramika, their family members, and your soldiers, pay their allegiance to Al-Amin so that he becomes the Khalifa. Then Harun basically has no choice. Has no choice. And he told her, no problem. And they told him, she told him basically through her brother, the messenger, her brother, told him, if you do this, you will be in very good hands. We'll take care of you. Don't worry about us. So indeed, he saw this is a good opportunity for them as well to nominate Al-Amin, and hence they gave him the allegiance. So Harun had no choice but to appoint Al-Amin as the Khalifa. But he realized he was not qualified. Interesting, the father realized, Harun, that Al-Amin was not qualified for Khilafah. He was a womanizer, a man who looked after his own self. He was not really qualified for Khilafah. Al-Ma'mun was much more qualified, and he favored him over Al-Amin, but he couldn't resist his wife, Bani al-Abbas, the Abbasids, to stand against them and nominate his other son as the Khalifa. So what he did something unique among all Khulafa that none of them before had done it. He took both of his sons to Hajj, both of them to Hajj. He made them both sign an agreement that Al-Amin becomes the Khalifa after him, Al-Ma'mun becomes the successor. Ma'mun becomes successor of Al-Amin. He made them sign this agreement, and he posted the agreement in the Kaaba. He put it in the Kaaba to honor it. And he made it public that, listen, if I die, Al-Amin becomes the Khalifa, Ma'mun is his successor. And Ma'mun will be given some portion of my state, and Al-Amin will be given other portions of my state. He actually divided the state in his lifetime because he did not want to have war between the two sons. He realized what would happen. So he did something unique. This was Al-Amin, Muhammad Al-Amin. So a very pampered child, living a very comfortable life. His mother is pushing her husband and her brother and the Baramika, who were very powerful at the time, to pay their allegiance. So she forced her way and her son's way into Khilafah. This was his Amin. Ma'mun, on the contrary, had a completely different story, which tells you about the upbringing of the child and the environment. Yeah, what can we do here? Hajji, we did not fix this, mashallah. So, Al-Ma'mun had a completely different lifestyle, which tells you about the environment the child grows in and how important it is. The environment and how it affects the upbringing of the child. Ma'mun did not have the luxury of Al-Amin. First of all, his mother was a maid. She was not Zubaydah, the Abbasi, a maid. And the story goes as follows. One day, Harun was playing chess with Zubaydah. Playing chess. And they made a bet. Anyone who wins will tell the other to do something. The other one to do something. And the other one has no choice but to do it. He made a bet. So they agreed. They played chess. Zubaydah won. So Harun said, okay, what do you want me to do? She said, I want you to find the ugliest maid in the whole palace and you sleep with her. Tells you about, mashallah, the manners there and this lifestyle of these people. He told her, please find me another thing. I'll do anything else but this. She said, no, this is what you have to do. So they found the ugliest maid in the whole palace was this lady by the name of Marajil. She was a maid, and she was an Iranian maid from Iran, Persian. So he tried to get out of it, he couldn't. So he slept with her, and when he slept, as a consequence, Ma'mun was born, was conceived, and he was born. After delivering Al-Ma'mun, she died. Immediately after delivering him, she died. So now comes Al-Ma'mun. He is the son of the maid, a maid who is not even an Arab, a non-Arab maid. And the Arabs at the time had discrimination. Arab versus non-Arab. Second, his mother is dead. He's an orphan. He was passed on to the brother of Al-Fadl ibn Yahya al-Barmaki. We said Fadl was a very big man. His brother, Ja'far ibn Yahya al-Barmaki. He was not as strong as his brother, but he was still from the Baramika, so he was still powerful, but not as powerful. And the man who raised him was a man by the name of Al-Fadl ibn Sahl. There are many Fadls here, so you'll get confused tonight, inshallah. But listen to the lecture, it'll be recorded online, so. There are 3 Fadls tonight, and there are 3 different Fadls. Okay. So Al-Fadl ibn Sahl, he raised Al-Ma'mun, along with Ja'far ibn Yahya al-Barmaki. They raised him. Al-Amin was raised by Al-Fadl ibn Yahya and Al-Fadl ibn Rabi'. That was the second Fadl, 2 Fadls here. Fadl ibn Rabi' was Arab. was an Arab man as well. So Amin was really, had it all surrounded by the Arabs. He's from the Abbasids. He's the son of Zubaydah. Everything, mashallah, everything is going well for him. All the odds are in his favor. Ma'mun, all the odds are against him. The son of the maid, his mother is dead. He's given to Al-Fadl ibn Sahel, who himself is an Iranian man. He's not an Arab. Fadl ibn Sahel is an Iranian. He's raising him. So all the odds are against him. Everything is against him. From day one, he realized this. From the day he opened his eyes to this world, he started realizing things. He realized there's a difference between him and his brother Al-Amin. There's a difference between the two. So his behavior, his upbringing was completely different. Completely different. He immediately started to think of ways of how can he carve his niche, as they say. How can he make his way into the Khilafah? This was not an easy thing to do. But he was not also an ordinary Khalifa or an ordinary person as well. Historians say among all the caliphs of Bani Umayyah and Bani al-Abbas, Ma'mun, Abdullah al-Ma'mun was probably the most intelligent one and the most unique one of all of them, of Bani Umayyah and Bani al-Abbas. He started to figure out ways of how to make his way. So his lifestyle was completely different. He was more intelligent. He would spend more time thinking, how can he make his way into this life? And Harun figured this out. One day he was sitting down with Zubaydah. He was telling her there's a huge difference between your son and Ma'mun. She said, no, my son is better. He said, no, the other one is better, and I'll prove it to you. They were in the middle of the night talking to each other, in the middle of the night. He said, let's see. He sends his guard, he says, go and get me Al-Amin right now, in the middle of the night. Get him for me. The guard goes, knocks on his door, in his room. He's asleep, far asleep, snoring. He wakes up. He tells him, what do you want? He said, your father is calling you right now. He wants you right now. He comes, his hair is all messed up. He's wearing his pajamas. He comes, his eyes are half closed, like most of us when we wake up Salat al-Fajr. When we wake up Salat al-Fajr, this is how we are. Most of us are like this. So he went there. He says to his father, what do you want? Why are you waking me up here in the middle of the night? He said, listen, I will grant you 3 wishes. 3 wishes, like the genie of the lamp. 3 wishes. Ask anything you want and I will give you except Khilafah. Don't ask for Khilafah. Khilafah, there's no option there. Anything other than the Khilafah, I will give you. Amin said, okay, if that's the case, then you have a beautiful garden. You own a beautiful garden. I like that garden. I want to own it. He said, take it. He said, you also have a beautiful maid. One of your maids is very beautiful. I want to have her. Take her. And you have a very nice horse. I like your horse. It's very fast. I want it. Okay, take it. Khalas? Okay, thank you. He goes to sleep. Ma'as-salam. He tells Zubaydah, did you see? He said, yes. He said, okay, let's call now Al-Ma'mun. He tells the guard, go get me Al-Ma'mun now. The guard goes, knocks on Al-Ma'mun, again in the middle of the night. He's asleep. He wakes up. He says, what's the matter? He says, your father is calling you. The Khalifa is calling you. He says, this must be something very urgent. He gets up, immediately washes his face. He puts on his military uniform. He thought to himself, this must be a war. And my father wants to send me on a battle. Why would he call me in the middle of the night? So he gets up, he puts on his military uniform. He cleans himself, like, how some mu'mineen wake up in the night, in the middle of the morning, and they, mashallah, get ready. So he gets really prepared. And he goes to see his father. The minute he enters, his father looks at the mother and trying to tell her, look at the difference between the two. He tells him the same thing. He tells him, I give you 3 wishes other than Khilafah. What would you like? He pauses for a second. He says, anything? He said, anything other than Khilafah. He said, if that is the case, my first wish is that you release all the political prisoners. Any political prisoner you have in your prisons, you release them, but you say that your release is given by the order of Al-Ma'mun Al-Abbasi. Ma'mun has ordered you to be released. He said, done. What else? He says, my next request is you increase the salaries of all your military. All your military, your soldiers, commanders, anyone in your army, you increase their salaries. But you tell them the increase came from who? Ma'mun. Ma'mun has increased all your salaries. The third, he said, what else would you want? He said, the third request I have is you send a message to all your states. You know, the Islamic state at the time, huge. From Morocco all the way to the borders of China was the state of Harun. That's why when he used to look at the cloud, he used to say, to talk to the cloud, he said, cloud, wherever you go and reign, I'm benefiting from it. My state is benefiting from it. You know, the state of his father, you know, his own state, not the Muslim state, my state. So, this state, he said, you send a message to your entire state, all your governors in the state. You tell them this coming year, all of you are relieved from taxes. None of you pays taxes. All of you. And we're talking about lots of money in taxes. Imagine if the Canadian government would send us one day, you know, 1 year, relief in taxes. You know, we will all vote for that person if he says something like this. Yeah. So he says, you relieve them all from taxes, but you say, who relieved you? Al-Ma'mun Al-Abbasi. Ma'mun has done this. Harun said, done. And he goes back. Harun turns to his wife, Zubaydah. He says, did you see the difference? He says, this man has just gained the respect of the army because he's increased all their salaries. He's just gained the trust of all the Islamic states because he relieved them from taxes. And he has gained the respect of the public because he released all the political prisoners. He says, do you think your son will have a chance against him? So the upbringing, that environment was huge in the contrast. That's why you find sometimes that environment is crucial. And that's why mu'mineen and mu'minat, brothers and sisters, we need to provide the best environment for our children when we bring them up. In terms of the environment of the house, try to make it an environment of iman, taqwa. Don't watch these movies that are not halal, are forbidden, wal-'iyadhu billah. These songs, wal-'iyadhu billah. And today, these days, especially with the presence of the internet and these satellites, where there are so many channels of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, it is so easy to do something like this. Maybe 20 years ago it was a bit more difficult. Today it is so easy to have a house full of that Islamic environment. Bringing the children, for example, to these places, like those children, mashallah, that I see here. It's fantastic. These children are listening to the lecture. They listen. Believe me, when you go home, you ask them, what did you hear? What did you say? And they'll tell you a word that they heard. They tell you something that I did, which means they're listening. This is their environment. Then we need to also work really hard to establish a full-time Shia Islamic school in this city, mu'mineen and mu'minat. I've been saying this for the past 3 years. And unfortunately, not much progress has been made. Unfortunately. When you have something like this, then you have a school, and the environment of the school is complementing the environment of the house. I'm not saying that the Shia Islamic school is the solution to all problems. No, it complements the environment of the house. It's not a person who sends to his children to the Islamic school and says, khalas, you know, I've done everything else. In the house, I don't really care about. No, it complements. In the house, you look after them. You send them to a Shia Islamic school. That environment complements the environment of the house. You bring them to the center. It complements that environment. Now, some people saying you're boxing the child in the society. You're isolating him away from the society. It's not the case. This is not the case. People are living in the society. When they drive outside, they'll see the Christmas lights. They'll see people in Halloween costumes. They'll ask. You tell them, this is what they are celebrating. This is what they're commemorating. This is what they're doing. We're not putting them in a box. They're learning the language of the country, English language. They're learning the language. They learn the history. So we're not isolating them in a box, but rather we are creating an environment in which when they grow, inshallah, this environment will help them follow the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam. That's one. Two, we're not the only community who are establishing private schools for our children. Look around you. How many communities are there that have special schools that teach about their religions, their ideologies, and so on and so forth? How many are there? And those students who study there, they come out to be among the most successful in some cases. They go to universities, which means that they're not isolated from the society. They're not isolated. We have examples before us. This is something we need to look after. That environment in the house, the environment that the child grows in has a huge impact on the child. Never mind the teacher. The teacher has a huge impact on the child. Huge impact. Al-Fadl ibn Sahl, who was the teacher of Al-Ma'mun, had a huge part in making Al-Ma'mun win the war against his brother Al-Amin. So nonetheless, that environment is very important. And here you have an example of two brothers from the same father. The same father. Both of them are the son of the Khalifa. However, one of them is living in a completely different environment from the other one. One is the son of the Abbasids, given to the Arabs, living a pampered life. And the other one is the son of a maid, who is not living a very comfortable life, because people used to make fun of him because of his mother. There are many lines of poetry were made about him, making fun of him because of his mother, Marajil, as her name was. So he did not have a comfortable life in his upbringing. Nonetheless, this man grows up. Al-Amin becomes the Khalifa. Harun dies. And Harun dies at a young age as well, at the age of 43. He dies. He leaves this dunya to Jahannam wa bi'sa al-masir. After killing Imam al-Kadhim salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. And today, you look at the shrine of Imam al-Kadhim salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh and look at Harun al-Rashid. Interestingly, Harun is buried in the same room as Imam al-Rida salamullahi alayh. The same room. Harun is on one side, Imam al-Rida is on the other side. It was the house of one of Harun's men, Hamid ibn Qahtaba. They buried Harun there. And then Ma'mun, when Imam al-Rida died, he wanted to bring some dignity to his father. So he buried Imam al-Rida next to his father. And that's why the poet of Imam al-Rida, Di'bil al-Khuza'i, he says there are two graves in Tus. One is for the best of the God's creation, and the other one was one of the most wicked one of them all. He says, neither the good one, the virtuous, the bad one, neither the bad one is benefiting from the good, and nor is the good and the purified having any harm from the bad next to him. There's no harm. He's not really being harmed, being next to Harun al-Rashid. Imam al-Rida and Harun in one room. Nonetheless, so he goes to the Khilafah. Al-Amin goes to the Khilafah. He takes the Khilafah as prescribed by his father. Everything is going well, but then Al-Fadl ibn Rabi', the minister of Al-Amin, he starts telling him that, you know what, your brother Ma'mun, how can you make him your successor? Kick him out. Kick him out, and you look after yourself. You appoint whomever you want. At the end, he does so. He kicks off his brother Al-Ma'mun and goes against the will of his father that he signed. When that happens, Ma'mun becomes in a very strange state. What can he do now? His brother, the Khalifa, kicked him out, but he's the Khalifa, he's not the Khalifa. That's one. Second, Al-Amin says, okay, I have to kill my brother Al-Ma'mun. So he sends an army after his brother Al-Ma'mun. He sends an army. Ma'mun at the time was in Khurasan, today's Mashhad. Amin was in Baghdad. Now Ma'mun is in even a worse situation. He's not the Khalifa. There is an army of the Khalifa coming to attack him. He's in critical state. Very critical. But with the help of his aide, Al-Fadl ibn Sahl, who was an Iranian, he managed to get the Iranians against the Arabs by giving them false promises that we will, bring back the good old days of the Shia of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. We will really respect Ahlul Bayt. We'll give you this and this and this and so on and so forth. Plus, they were really tired from what the Abbasids had done to them. So that he managed to gain their trust. They helped him. They supported him. In a long story, to make it short, he won. He managed to defeat his brother, Al-Amin. He killed his brother, Al-Amin, finally. And I mentioned it in the past. He put his head in the palace for 3 years. 3 years. Anyone who came to see him, to see Al-Ma'mun, had to spit on his brother's face so that he would give them whatever they want. Until one day a man came who had no idea about who's Ma'mun, who's Amin, what's going on. They told him, you want to talk to the Khalifa Al-Ma'mun, you have to spit on this man's face. So he spat on his face and started cursing him. He said, may Allah curse you and your father and your brothers and your family for whatever you have done. Everything, mashallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So Ma'mun was standing right there. He was sitting right in front of him. He smiled. He said, maybe this is enough. Let's take the head down now. Finish. Khalas. It's been enough. 3 years is enough. So he killed his own brother and he became the Khalifa. Now he came the Khalifa. He killed the Abbasi. He killed the Abbasi man, Al-Amin. Plus he killed Al-Fadl ibn al-Rabi', the Arab minister. He's gone. The Abbasis now are very upset. The son of the maid has become the Khalifa. Plus his right-hand man, the minister, who is not even an Arab, is now become the wazir, the minister. Not only became the wazir, he also made him the head, the commander of the army. That's why Al-Fadl ibn Sahl is known as Dur Ri'asatain, the man with the 2 leaderships, 2 commanderships. The commandership of the ministry and the military. Okay. So they were very upset. Abbasis are upset. He came to power, all his promises, just like these politicians when they give promises. He went against all his promises. So now the Iranians are upset with him. Bani Hashim are upset with him. He realized the situation is very chaotic. Very chaotic. In fact, he found that it is not even safe for him to stay in Baghdad. So he moved to Khurasan. Because he was worried that Bani al-Abbas would kill him. His own family would turn against him and kill him. So after lots of thinking, he came up with an idea. And the idea is what? To bring Imam al-Rida salamullahi alayhi in the picture. To bring him in the picture. This would solve lots of his problems, in his opinion. In his opinion. At least it would make those people who love Ahlul Bayt happy that we brought the Ahlul Bayt back to power. 2, he would keep an eye on Imam al-Rida salamullahi alayhi. He would keep a close eye on him. 3, those Abbasids who are not happy, he would tell them, at least I'm bringing the Arabs back. The Arabs are coming back to the Khilafah. And many other reasons. So he forces Imam al-Rida salamullahi alayhi to accept that Khilafah, or to accept basically the succession. Wilayatul Ahd. To become his successor. Imam al-Rida salamullahi alayhi accepts it, but he realizes that what Ma'mun is planning to do, and therefore from the beginning he tells him, listen, I will accept but with conditions. And Ma'mun said, okay, as long as you accept, I don't care what conditions you give. He said that one of the conditions is that I will not interfere in the politics of the whole state. I'm out of it. I'm just a figure, just a figurehead. I will not interfere. You want to appoint someone, you appoint. You want to kick someone out, you kick. You do whatever it is. I will not interfere. He said, no problem. And among many other conditions, he accepted. Then Ma'mun appointed Imam al-Rida as his Khalifa, his successor. At the beginning, he wanted to praise Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, and he was telling people that he is indeed the best of God's creation living on earth today. This is Al-Ma'mun saying. History records. He appoints Imam al-Rida salamullahi alayhi. But then slowly he realizes that his plot has failed. His plot has failed to the extent where he was quoted saying that we made a big mistake in appointing him as our successor. But now we're at the point of no return. What can we do now? And we have to get rid of him. So that's when he starts to think of how to get rid of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. He tried to humiliate Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. How? By bringing some people to debate with him, hoping that they would win the argument and he would lose. So that's why he humiliates Imam al-Rida. But every time he brings someone to debate with the Imam emerges victorious. And this brings more honor, more pride, more respect to him. So that plan failed. He wanted to bring down the Imam and his reputation, it failed. He couldn't. So finally he had no choice but to get rid of the Imam. And subhanallah, when a person only loves dunya, he will do amazing things just to stay in this dunya, in this life. Subhanallah. That's why in Dua Abu Hamza Thumali, we read, the Imam teaches us, Allahumma akhrij hubba dunya min qalbi. Oh Allah, remove the love of this dunya from my heart. The love of this dunya. By love of this dunya, we're not saying that don't work hard, don't buy nice houses and nice cars from halal places and resources, of course. We're not saying that. But don't be attached to them. Don't be attached. Consider everything that you have as a loan from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything in this world, consider it a loan from Allah. Therefore, if you lose it, you say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It was a loan. My house is a loan. My health is a loan. My children are a loan from Allah. If Allah takes it away from me, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Khalas. Allah gave it to me as I didn't own it in the beginning. Anyways. This Al-Ma'mun Al-Abbasi, he kills the man who raised him, Al-Fadl ibn Sahl. Fadl ibn Sahl, he raised him. He was his right-hand man. He was his aide in bringing the whole estate under his feet. When he realized that he's also getting too powerful, he's getting too powerful, he sent some people, and some historians say, no, he himself went and killed him. He sent 5 people, he may have been one of them as well. Personally gone and killed him. Killed him. Then he summons the 5 people, he summons them. He says, why did you kill this man? They told him, you told us to kill him. He says, I never told you to kill him. And he was crying, he was seen in public crying. Subhanallah, the same thing we see in this day and age. By some people, you know. We say in Arabic, they kill the man and then they walk in his, janazah. They walk behind him, to bury him, crying. Same, exactly. And he kills those 5 people who killed Al-Fadl ibn Sahl, because his brother, the Hassan ibn Sahl, the brother of Fadl, came and he wanted to kill Al-Ma'mun. He said, why did you kill my brother? He said, I didn't kill him. Look, I'm bringing those people who killed him to justice. And he cuts their heads off and sends it to him. He says, see, I didn't kill him. It wasn't me. He kills the man who was the reason for his power. He's gone. And then he kills other commanders. And kills until it comes to Imam al-Rida salamullahi alayhi, where he realizes that's it. So he chooses to poison some grapes. And historians say he himself poisoned the grapes with his own hands. He poisoned the grapes. And he called Imam al-Rida salamullahi alayhi. He told him, here, eat with me. He gave him the bowl. He had some grapes that are poisoned and others that are not. So he ate from the ones that are not poisoned. And he told Imam al-Rida, here, have some. Imam al-Rida ate 3 grapes and he stopped. Ma'mun said, why are you stopping? Continue on. He said, this is enough to execute your plan. This is enough. And then he got up. He was with his companion, a man by the name of Abu Salt al-Harawi. He came out of Ma'mun's palace. He told Abu Salt, Ya Abu Salt, I have been poisoned. I'm not going to be living much longer. So he goes into his place, into his room. One thing about Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, mu'mineen and mu'minat, is that he had to live next to Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi and Al-Fadl ibn Sahel and those people for over 2 years. Over 2 years, night and day and night. He would see their faces in front of him. Imagine this kind of torture. Not only this, they kept a guard on the gate of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, a guard on his gate. This guard would not allow anyone to enter to see the Imam. Selective. That's why some of the companions of the Imam sometimes would write to him. They would tell him, we want to come and see you. He would write back and says, at this time it is difficult for you to come and see me. You can't. Because they kept a guard at my gate, he won't allow you to come in. So at this time you can't make it. When the time permits, I will let you know. So even the companions of the Imam couldn't come to see him. So he was living in a very difficult situation, in a very difficult state. But Allah says, as we read in the ayah, anyone who has the taqwa of Allah, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا, Allah will save him. Allah will save him. Yes, Imam was given the poison, but look at him today. And this is in dunya. Look at his dome. Look at his shrine. قبران في طوس خير الناس كلهم وقبر شرهم هذا من العبر. As Du'bul says, 2 graves in Tus, as I mentioned, Harun and Imam al-Rida. But look at the contrast between the two. Look at the contrast between the two. So, he lived a very difficult life, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the blessings in dunya and in the akhirah, which means mu'mineen and mu'minat, if we struggle in dunya, in the path of Allah, we might experience difficulties, but as long as we're in the path of Allah, Allah will take us out, will save the mu'min, will save the muttaqi. This is a guarantee from Allah. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Allah will give him, will help him. So Imam al-Rida then went, it is said on his last day, he was feeling the pain of the poison, tearing his organs apart. He then turned to his maids and servants and told them, have you eaten today? Have you had food? This is his last day of his life. They told him, no, Ya ibn Rasulullah, who would want to eat? Who feels like eating when you're in such a state? He says, but you can't stay like this. So he gets up. Imagine, sometimes we might experience a stomach ache. We don't even feel like moving out of bed. He's not experiencing a stomach ache. He's experiencing poison. He gets up from the bed. He says, tell the people, tell the maids and the servants to bring the sufra, the food. Bring the food. I will sit down and eat with you. So they bring the food. He sits with his male servants and he says, bring another sufra from behind the curtain for the females. On his last day, he sits with them. They all eat. And then he says, take the sufra now. He makes sure that even in the last moment, he's taking care of his servants and his maids until the last moment in his life. I say to him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, consider us also among your servants and your maids and take care of us as well. On the last day of your life, when you're feeling all this difficulty and all this pain, your ra'fah, your compassion encompass these servants of yours, these maids of yours. So when it comes to our last day in our lives, we hope that your ra'fah, your compassion would also encompass us as well. He was there dying in Khurasan all alone, and it was a difficult state for him and for his family. Di'bil al-Khuza'i, many years earlier than this, came to the Imam and told him a poem, a very famous poem, commemorating the tragedy of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, Imam Hussein, for which Imam al-Rida cried really out loudly, أفاطم لو خلت الحسين مجدلا وقد مات عطشانا بشط فراتي. That famous poem. When he finished it, Imam al-Rida said to him, Ya Di'bil. He concluded with the martyrdom of Imam al-Kadhim. Di'bil concluded with the martyrdom of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. He said to him, Ya Di'bil, can I finish your poetry for you? Do you allow me? He said, yes. He said to him, okay, I'll add 2 verses of poetry. وَقَبْرٌ بِطُوسٍ يَا لَهَا مِن مُصِيبَةٍ أَلَحَّتْ عَلَى الْأَحْشَاءِ بِالزَّفَرَاتِ إلى الحشر حتى يبعث الله قائما يزيل عنا الهم والكربات. He said, and there is a grave in Tus that really makes the heart burn for it. And the pain of that grave will remain until Allah sends the 12, the Imam alayhi salam, for which who will take the revenge for us all. Di'bil looked at him and he said, whose grave is this, Ya Mawlai? Whose grave is going to be in Tus? He told him, هذا قبر مولاك علي ibn Musa al-Rida. This is my grave. I will be buried there in Tus, Ya Di'bil. All alone, a stranger. Di'bil, whomever comes to do my ziyarah in Tus, while recognizing who I am and my imamah, I will be there for them with my shafa'ah as well, Ya Di'bil. Ya Di'bil, tell our Shia to come and visit their Imam in Gharib, to come and visit me. For my grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi has said the hadith, a part of me will be buried in Tus, in Khurasan. Anyone who goes to visit him, recognizing him as the Imam of his time, recognizing him as the Ma'soom of the progeny of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, I will give him shafa'ah. This is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi saying, I will give him shafa'ah. I will say to him, Ya Rasulullah, here on this night, we were not able to physically be the visitors and the zawars of your grandson, Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. But our heart are there doing ziyarah of Imam al-Rida, saying, Assalamu alayka ya gharib al-ghuraba. Before leaving Medina, going to Tus, he gathered his family members. He was crying out loud and he told them, oh my family members, weep and mourn for me. He did a majlis for himself. He said, mourn for me, cry for me. Because once I leave you, I will not come back again to Medina. I am forced to leave it. It is said then he went to the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. He gave his salam to Rasulullah and he said, Ya Jaddah, Ya Rasulullah, alayka minni salam. I am forced to leaving you, Ya Rasulullah, but it is not with my choice. I have no choice. I have to leave. It is said he took few steps but then went back to the grave, cried at the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. He did this 3 times and then he took his son Muhammad al-Jawad, who was a little boy at the time. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, take care of him during my absence. And then he went to Khurasan. And on such a day, mu'mineen and mu'minat, he was lying on his deathbed. Abu Salt al-Hirawi says, Imam told me, Ya Abu Salt, lock the gates. Today I'm meeting my Lord. I don't want anyone to come and see me. I want to stay gharib, alone in the state. Abu Salt says, I locked the doors. Then I was next to the Imam crying. All of a sudden I see a young man coming at me, heading towards the Imam alayhi salam. I looked at him and I said, who are you and how did you get inside here when I have locked the gates? He told me, Ya Abu Salt, the one who brought me from Medina to Khurasan is the one who allowed me to enter in this room. Who are you? He said, Ya Abu Salt, Ana Muhammadul Jawad. I am the son of Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. He comes, this young boy who was at the time 8 years old, 7 years old. He threw himself on the body of his father. He cried, Aywa Abata, Aywa Aliyah. He said, oh father, it is difficult for me to see you in this state. Imam al-Rida alayhi salam opened his eyes. In the last moments, he hugged his son Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. And then he said, Bismillah wa billah wa ala millati jaddi Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa alih. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن جدي محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وفاضت روحه الطاهرة. And the soul of your Imam departed his body, Ya Shi'a. Our Imam became Shaheed, Gharib in Khurasan. Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam then took care of washing the body of his father, doing the ghusl and the kafan of his father, until he was buried Gharib in Khurasan. Assalamu alayka ya Gharib al-Ghuraba. السلام عليك يا غريب خراسان. السلام عليك يا أنيس النفوس وشمس الشموس الغريب المدفون بأرض طوس. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. مؤمنين ومؤمنات, this is the time inshallah when dua is accepted. Raise your hands. We turn our hearts towards Khurasan today. Our hearts inshallah are now in Khurasan, doing the ziyarah of Imam al-Rida salamullahi alayhi. And we tell him, Yabna Rasulullah, remember us like we remembered you today. We remembered your difficulty and how strange you were, how the stranger you were in Khurasan. Remember our difficulty when we are put in our graves and how stranger we are at that moment. Inshallah, the dua is accepted at this moment. Raise your hand, mu'mineen and mu'minat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. 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 اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم. يا الله 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 يا الله. إلهي بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها، اكشف عنا السوء يا الله. إلهي بالإمام الرضا عليه السلام اغفر ذنوبنا يا الله. إلهي بالإمام الرضا عليه السلام اجعلنا وذريتنا إلى يوم الدين من شيعة الإمام الرضا يا الله، ومن خدمته المخلصين يا الله. اللهم بالإمام الرضا عليه السلام اقض حوائج المؤمنين والمؤمنات يا الله. شافي وعافي جميع مرضى المؤمنين والمؤمنات يا الله. خدایا گناهان ما را بریز، آبروی ما را مریز، با محمد و آل محمد ما را محشور بفرما یا الله. اللهم اغفر لي ولوالدي وارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. اجزهما بالإحسان إحسانا وبالسيئات غفرانا. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من شيعته وأنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أرنا الطلعة الرشيدة والغرة الحميدة واكحل أنظارنا بنظرة منا إليه. اللهم بعلي بن موسى الرضا عليه السلام ارزقنا زيارته في الدنيا عاجلا يا الله، وشفاعته في الدنيا وفي القبر وفي الآخرة يا الله. اللهم نقسم عليك بالزهراء فاطمة إلا ما رزقتنا شفاعة الزهراء يا الله يا الله يا الله، لقضاء الحوائج ولشفاء المرضى ولكشف هذه الغمة عن هذه الأمة ولتعجيل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان، وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات لا سيما أرواح أموات الجالسين والحاضرين. رحم الله من يقرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات. الله